our slow cooker, marinated tarapana.
Shankari has a favourite Sri Lankan restaurant in Sydney's inner west, the Colombo Social. Tonight, she's here with the owner, her good friend, Shaun Christie-David.
Now, I'm serious about finding you a girlfriend, so do you have a girlfriend right now?
No, I don't. No, I broke up with my partner.
Okay. What inspired you to start Colombo Social?
We never had a place that we could be first-generation migrant. It's nostalgic, it's authentic, it's home style, but it's not as well.
Shankari and Shaun share a Tamil background and a commitment to social justice. Shaun through his social enterprise restaurants and Shankari with her writing.
Right, I write as a diasporic Tamil who left, or whose parents left in the 70s, and have received the enormous benefit of their education, my education, the stability and the lack of trauma that our lives have had. And I think what comes with that is a sense of us when we watched our parents' generation. We were watching their grief at what was happening in Sri Lanka and their guilt, because terrible things were happening to their people and they were surviving it. They had escaped it. And we as children watched that growing up. And that really shaped our political consciousness. We were also acutely aware of how lucky we were to live in Australia.
I was born here, right? So what? This is the thing about identity, right? And this is what I always grapple with, and you will as well, right? Where do we identify in the world? So you identify quite strongly as Sri Lankan Tamil.
Yes.
Right? Which is amazing.
As well as Australian in that.
That's right.
When I was younger, being a Tamil Australian felt like I was stuck in a kind of no man's land of not being particularly, or not being Tamil enough, or not being Australian enough, whatever Australian meant in the 80s.
And Mum, when she first got to Australia, was using Women's Weekly.
Same. I was doing the same, tearing out recipes and trying to connect with this new place through the food that people were eating.
Food was only one challenge for families like Shankari's trying to connect in Australia. Her father encountered racial discrimination in his early attempts to find work here.
When I came to Sydney and I was preparing to go to Canberra and apply to the hospital, one of the doctors there told me that person like me would not be suitable for working in the Australian Capital Territory. So I was not Australian enough in his eyes. Cultural background, ethnic background, colour, probably. But not in the eyes of many other good colleagues who accepted me, supported me, and nurtured my career.
Shankari's family did eventually settle in Canberra, where she went to school. Its Tamil community was still small then, requiring trips to Sydney for spices.
We drove from Canberra to Sydney.
Yeah.
They loaded the boot.
Yeah.
And everything from Faluda rose syrup to the passion fruit cordial, like just spices. They were so happy. Because now we just take spice straws for granted.
Yeah.
And I remember making Faluda, making the passion fruit cordial, like when we were going to visit my grandparents in Colombo.
Yeah.
Just the happiness of the familiar tastes.
Yeah.
This rich array of spices also made its way into Shankari's school lunchbox and made her feel different from the other kids.
Because when you're a child, you don't want to be different. And something as simple as your lunchbox really marks you as different. And you assume difference is bad. You assume that difference will be received in a way where you're potentially alienated. But one of life's many lessons was that difference was eventually received as something exciting and delicious, because it is. I've dedicated that book to my brother in the desperate and yet vain hope that he will actually read it.
I've started. You've read the...
Tonight, Shankari's meeting both family and friends at Colombo Social.
So our father became a vegetarian in 1983. But at that particular time, the July riots happened in Sri Lanka when Tamil people were killed in Colombo and other parts of the country, which sparked the civil war. They learnt about the riots and he felt so horrified by the bloodshed that he just couldn't eat meat anymore.
By pure chance, a local book club is here as well tonight, armed with copies of Shankari's book, chai time at Cinnamon Gardens.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. I'm completely surprised that you're doing my book.
Oh, yeah. It was fabulous.
Oh, thank you.
It was great.
I think you said you based it on... I based it on the nursing home where my grandmother lived the last years of her life.
What was your favourite character?
Kind of, Maya is pretty much my favourite character. But at the same time, I kind of had the hots for Reuben.
He's rather
Yeah, okay. Thank you, ladies. Thank you.
Coming from a family of doctors, there was an expectation that Shankari would be one too. But the story she'd heard about the Sri Lankan Civil War drove her towards law instead.
So law was really my way of rebelling because I'm obviously a really wild child. Instead of doing medicine, I chose to do law. I had always loved words. I'd always loved language and loved reading. And I wonder perhaps if what I really wanted was to be a storyteller and a writer from the beginning. Growing up, I was inspired by the possibilities of justice, but also enraged by injustice. The war played out for 30 years of my life. And during that time, we saw terrible injustices done to our people. And my father was very politically conscious. He was very politically active. And that was inspiring to us.
When we grew up in Canberra, Manapa used to take us every Sunday to like a scripture class. It's called Baalvikas. So one of the phrases that we learnt was service to man is service to God. And so that was something that I think was my parents attempted to instill in Shank and I. And that's part of the reason why I chose medicine. And I think that's part of the reason why I think Shank has chosen her profession of law and pursued that social justice framework, and even in the work, the way she writes, what she writes about.